Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So I'm Kelly Morgan. I'm head of the data center team here at 451 Research. And joining me today, I have Nicholas Laag, CEO of Prime Data Centers, as well as Jeff Barber, the EVP of Sales and Marketing for Prime Data Centers. It's great to have you both with us.
Great to be here. Thank you.
So today we're going to talk about data centers. And I think to start with, the past few years, we've seen this dramatic demand from hyperscale data center providers, taking hundreds of megawatts around the country. We're talking about the Microsofts, the Amazons, even Facebook and LinkedIn and Oracle, those types. But we do also still see demand from enterprises. And both cases, actually, they often lease whole buildings as well as sharing data centers with other folks. So I wondered if you could tell us a bit more about the customers that you're seeing and whether they typically take whole buildings, how they're buying data center space going forward. Jeff, perhaps we could start with you.
Yeah, absolutely, Kelly. There has been a large transition, primarily for the enterprise, moving into an entire infrastructure not managed by themselves. So you may have a Fortune 500 company that wishes to get out of the real estate business and into but still must maintain their own data center space. There are multiple reasons why. Security being head of that list, but there's also cost benefits to not managing their own facility. So as a single tenant taking down an entire data center, something Prime has experienced ourselves, the primary advantage is in a single tenant environment, there's no concern about the other players in the room, in the MMR, from a bandwidth perspective, from a wireless access point perspective. The security and simplicity of being in your own space with no one else around you or interfering with you is quite attractive. And financially, it can work out very well also.
Nicholas, could you perhaps talk about the different options in terms of leasing a turnkey wholesale space versus leasing a powered shell? How do companies decide between those?
Yeah, certainly. I think it really depends on the company. And certainly for us, we have the discussions of turnkey as well as powered shell. I'd say the majority is turnkey. And if you have an existing facility ready, obviously you can then also allow the customer to move in quicker. Powered shell, on the other hand, for a number of particular hyperscale customers, it allows them to secure a footprint and then move into that, first of all. And secondly, it gives them the leverage to decide on their own infrastructure. Some of these companies already have deployed, as you mentioned, several hundred megawatts, so they have the expertise and the know-how and the desire to create their own environment within that powered shell.
And does that help them standardize their data center footprints across the world, for example?
Absolutely. I think as this industry has evolved and the sheer size of infrastructure deployment with a number of larger, in particular cloud companies as well as SaaS companies, is if you look at what they've deployed in the past 5 years and what they need to do in the next 10 years, we're all anticipating in deploying quite a lot of money into this space, and hence the ability to standardize is very important in terms of creating an environment for your IT that is more standardized and also in terms of speed and then also cost. These are three important factors that we've seen from the customer base.
And speaking of cost, actually, in our latest Voice of the Enterprise surveys that we do every quarter, we did a Vote Cloud survey recently where we asked why firms, enterprises would use hybrid, so a mix of public cloud, private cloud, on-premises, co-location, why they would use hybrid. And the number one reason, so 50% of them chose this, was to optimize costs, with the number two reason being to expand their IT capacity without having to add CapEx, without having to spend additional CapEx. So I wondered if you could talk a bit more about the key cost considerations when a company is looking at data center space with you. Perhaps, Jeff, do you want to start with that one?
Back up your survey results with some real world experience. Absolutely, hybrid is deployed typically for cost, but that can apply to not wanting to rewrite legacy applications. They have the flexibility of public cloud, so they can expand and contract as needed, like you said, without CapEx. Prime absolutely sees that hybrid model as winning out now. What are the cost concerns for the customers? I think Paramount is obviously power and cooling and efficiency. Here at Prime, we take that very seriously with very modern infrastructure. We pay very close attention to the power costs, the connectivity, the efficiency of our data centers. So those tend to be the top three customer concerns when we're talking about moving into either the entire facility or say a megawatt or 2 megawatts in one of our facilities. Those are the top three cost concerns.
So actually, to talk more about cost and financing, we've seen a lot more interest from different types of investors in the data center sector. We've seen a lot of interest from real estate funds, other types of private equity, but even with very long-term horizons, much more kind of infrastructure funds. And that's partly because they want to offset the risks from other, particularly real estate investments like malls and offices and hotels, for example. So we've actually seen the number increase from something like, I think it was 18% back 5 years ago of the acquisitions were made by these types of firms, and now we're up to almost 50%. So we're kind of seeing this as a trend. Nicholas, can you perhaps tell us a bit what this means on your end and how you've seen the financing impact the industry?
Yeah, I think it's impacting it positively. I would say the majority of that is probably still private equity. Having said that, we believe more and more pension funds, endowments are getting more comfortable with this sector, which is positive, and of course it lowers the cost of capital, which transcends into lower cost of a service for our customers. We do think scale is really important still, and with scale you get a benefit on the financing side. If you have a single asset, the traditional banks in many cases still are not really comfortable or have a good understanding of this sector, as it's still relatively nascent in comparison to the whole real estate sector. We also see new trends which are positive with, for example, green bonds that we are certainly focused on as well, with anchoring sustainability within the program that we're building out in our facilities, and benefiting from that, and that in turn allows us also to take a longer term approach and lower the cost of investment, which allows us also to be more competitive.
And that's interesting. You mentioned sustainability. We've done other surveys of data center providers, and we had 80% of them tell us last summer that sustainability was a huge criteria, and that they had a large percentage of their customers, if not all of them, requiring sustainability factors written into their contracts. So that's becoming extremely important in the industry. It'll be interesting to see going forward. So I'm afraid that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much for joining us, Nicholas and Jeff.
Thanks for having us, Kelly. If anyone would like to learn more about Prime, you can visit us at primedatacenters.com.
And thank you to all the viewers out there. For anyone who wants to know more about us at 451 Research, you can find us at 451research.com. Have a great day.